Welcome back. I am the founder and CEO of Hollylead.co. If you don't know what that is, check it out. It's a full interview prep transition service. So I know that our guests have spent many time with me right now. So let's get this going. Prasad, thank you for your patience. Prasad is a current Principal Solution Architect. In your own world, please do share your journey into how you end up at Amazon and your career journey so far.
Good. Thanks. First of all, thank you for the opportunity for having me. I'm honored, I would say, going live with your audience. And regarding my journey, I started my career, as a .NET developer, frankly, nothing extraordinary. I, went on to become a lead architect, and there was a moment when I thought, okay, let's try Amazon. Frankly, when I passed out of my college, I did try for tier 1 companies and I was crushed in the interviews, and I thought, no, I'm good at the tier 2 companies. I'm not going to try for these, fan companies at that time when I passed out of the college. But yeah, it happened, around 10 to 12 years into the industry. And when I was able to, get that level of experience, I was in London at that time. And, one of my senior actually, got me referred to Amazon. I was actually searching for a new job at that time, and I was anyways interviewing, and then he said that, Prasad, why don't you try for AWS? I'm like, first of all, I know that I'll not be able to clear the interview because I've tried it many years back. Secondly, I don't have any AWS experience at all. I did not come from a cloud background, so probably I'm not the right fit. But he did encourage me that, why don't you try it out? Then I had to scroll through, thousands of, jobs on Amazon.com/jobs to see what's the right fit for me. And that's one thing, you need to spend that time to understand what, role is. So when I was able to find a good role, got myself referred, and somehow, was able to got through the interview. It was a long process, more than 3 months. But yeah, that's how.
Wow, more than 3 months at that time?
Yes. It took me the whole 3 months, mainly because I frankly took a lot of time for the preparation, especially after clearing the phone screens and before the loop started, when I actually thought this is getting serious and this is, I have an actual shot. Then I thought, oh, let me take some time and prepare, because the more I started reading about Amazon and the leadership principles and the whole culture, I'm like, it's not any other technical interview that I'm going to give at any other company, right? So I need to prepare well. And that's where I took a lot of time. Actually asked recruiter specifically that, I can give it next week, but I know that then I'll not be able to clear it. So why don't we, gives me some time. And actually they gave me an assignment, on AWS. It was a very simple assignment for someone who knows AWS, but someone coming from a different background who doesn't know AWS, I had to go through the Udemy training. I took a Udemy course and I gone through it, and then did that assignment. Yeah.
Well, first of all, Prasad, I think you are extremely humble because I looked at your LinkedIn profile. Listen, to get entered as a level 6 specialist solution architect, by the way, y'all, solution architect is one of the hardest positions to land at Amazon. Why? Because I expect you to know the entire infrastructure. They expect you to know the platform in and out, their products, their servers, the cow come home. That's Amazon, right? Because the bar is super high. In looking at your background, you have about a decade experience prior to interviewing at Amazon, right? You had quite a lot of experience in India, and you were in school for a while too. Let me go ahead and jump in and help you out a little bit there. The thing I'm so glad you mentioned about, for not just Amazon, but any employer, I think there's that unconscious bias, which I also taught at Amazon, by the way, where you have this expectation, I want this perfect candidate to have this, with that, to know our culture and all this stuff. But what they don't understand is by doing so, you may miss some of the great hire, like yourself, right? Because you've never done it before, because you never worked for AWS before. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. But one of the things that really got my interest was, and you mentioned this as well when we were hanging out at the BeSa Program. And by the way, if you guys don't know what the BeSa Program is, Prasad is one of the founder. Basically, it's a group of internal Amazonian who does similar things like this, podcasts and resources to help you. So check that video out. It's also in my channel as well. That's how we met. I want to kind of be hone in on the interview process a little bit. So what would you say is the toughest part of your Amazon interview? You took 3 months. So what did you do in those 3 months aside from prepping for the technical part? Did you create a bunch of questions and answer? Because that's what I talk about. What are your process?
So see, I was anyways preparing for interviews with other companies, right? And Amazon, yes, I did got referred and, somehow, my resume got shortlisted, but, I was only focusing on other companies till the time I was able to clear the first 2 phone screens. And during the first 2 phone screens, luckily it worked out for me. And that's when I started my real preparation for Amazon. When I thought that I had a real get chance. So I started reading articles online a lot to understand about leadership principles. In one of the, article that I read, it was like about Amazon interview is 90% leadership principles. And then, okay, there is not one, not two. They are like, at that time we had 14 leadership principles. Like, okay, we have 14 leadership principles. And then started diving deep into it, right? And a lot of them, like, you can resonate with them, especially if you have, industry experience, bias for action. Yes, you see a problem, you go ahead and, you solve it. You can, actually relate to them. But it's just not about relating to them. It's about, understanding them deeply and understanding that Amazon does very seriously take care of, it's their life, it embodies in everyday work culture. So if you're able to somehow relate your experience with that, you would be able to, understand and relate yourself in that area. So what I try to do is that apart from all the technical preparation that I did, I try to reflect on my 10 years career, think about all the scenarios in which I would have been able to either, fully or remotely exhibit one or more leadership principles. I started writing them down. Then I started creating stories in star format, like the whole situation, task, action, result, right? And then
I had to. You said star methods. People don't listen to me when I talk about the star all the time.
Yeah. So that helped. Initially it started with not just writing one line into each of these, if this is the situation, this is the task, this is the action, this is the result. And then I started, when I started reading more, right? And then there is a peeling the onion that we call, right? They'll try and understand more and more. So I started, kind of anticipating, okay, what follow-up question can they ask me on this? And I started gathering the data on all of that. I might not have had all the data, and it might be because I have worked on it like 3 or 4 years ago. I might not have been able to remember. So I try to reach out to those people and understand what the data is and gather all the data and have that coherent story, right? And then practice it with few people, right? Practice it with few people in a way that when you tell them the story, are they able to understand the full story? And when I say story, do not, take 10 minutes to explain the story. Try and summarize it within a minute or a two, and see if someone wants to ask you more questions, then you're able to answer to that, right? So having that level of, understanding that what they can ask you and preparing well will help you to anticipate all the kinds of questions that they might ask you. Now, when I'm here and I start interviewing, I interview a lot, I understand, but when you're outside and you do not know, try and understand, especially Holly, channel, you will be able to understand what kind of questions, if you have been listening to her, then it will help you anyways understand that. But the follow-up questions to understand the dive deep, scenarios, or it's as simple as what did you learn from it? What would you do when you start doing it again? You can, try and prepare all of this upfront. And that's what took me a lot of time at, not only thinking about those scenarios, but see, if you have done a successful project in your previous life, you would not be thinking about what would you do differently if you start all over again. But for Amazon interview, you need to think about that, what you could do better. If you say that, no, everything went perfect, that means there is no scope of growth. And that's not something that we at Amazon are. We are self-critical. We want to understand what better we could have done, even with the best results.
You are so Amazonian right now, Prasad. You make me miss my last job. Here's a problem. Every time when I hung out with an Amazonian, which I have a friend here, he's a senior dev manager. I worked for him in consumer 10 years ago. He's in Phoenix. I was doing my own thing. I love being my own boss. And then I hung out with him. I'm like, man, should I go back and work for Amazon? I was like, because he's on fire. Here's the thing. My attention span is really short. This is not Amazon. This is just who I am. Same thing as Prasad. He may seem very humble to you. Do not let that trick you, people. If you listen to the thing that he's saying, he's very fast, very thorough, to the point. That type of personality is called a culture fit at Amazon. That's why in almost every single one of my live, my video, my coaching, you know who you are. I don't have to point you out. When you communicate with an Amazonian, it's not Amazon. It is who you are. You have to show up with confidence. You have to stare them down almost as if you're owning them. Don't tell Amazon people I'm telling you, because they need to trust you right off the bat. And you have to be very detailed, in depth, but to the point, exactly what he just did, but be humble about it. That is the culture of just people in general. You got to ask yourself, am I okay to take feedback? Because if you're not, it's not the right culture for you. I work for a lot of these FANG companies, and let me tell you, everyone says that feedback is a gift. It is not a gift. In fact, I don't really give feedback. People will give you feedback very softly. I'm like, come on, just get to the point. What do you want? Tell me my area for improvement. I'll come back with a strategy and we're done talking. So that is the Amazon AWS culture. I made a video that's called Amazon culture. It's very raw. It's raw 101, starting from like Kindle, the first week, what I have launched in 1 week. So go check that video out where you come from. It's challenging because I know that for a lot of the folks, a lot of you who reach out to me, my followers on YouTube specifically, I would say maybe like 0.00001%, like 1 out of every like 10,000 are Amazonian. For the most part, you're not. You come from startup. Management consulting, banking, like ICO, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan. True story, Prasad. Those are my audience, but they're all Amazonians now. Deloitte even, like there's so many of them. So don't be afraid that just because you don't come from a famous tech company, they're not going to look at you any differently. And because you have an accent, you're not born and raised from here. If you all pay attention, most of my audience here are not born and raised from here. I'm a very diversified coach and ex-leader. That should a little bit better. I know that you mentioned that you ended up working there through a referral, but what is the most attracting thing for AWS? There's Google Cloud, there's Microsoft Azure, there's like Facebook Cloud. So there's so many cloud. VMware is like the number one player before Amazon even show up in the market. So why AWS for you?
So I'll take it broader. Why Amazon, right? Not just AWS. It's the Amazon culture, I would say, see, the things that I love here is first, the extreme amount of ownership that we get to take, right? It's the level of, like autonomity that you get. It's amazing. Sometimes it can be scary. Like, in my first 3 months of joining Amazon, I got to know that, there's not going to be any regular stand-ups or something that, like no one is going to micromanage you. You are on your own to create your own, like initiatives. It's like, all about how big you can think. People are here to support you. So that's what I like, like there's a saying that, every team in Amazon is a startup in itself. And that's true, like, and every person in Amazon has the potential, like to have that big idea and get it through. Yes, we have a process, the famous, like the, like doc writing culture that we have. But if you have an idea and you can get your doc through, you will be able to build your own business within Amazon itself. Like Holly, you were talking about, like the person who created the full Exa out of it, right? Just before we were chatting. That's the level of, like autonomity that we get, in my team, we do not have any, like daily, like catching up or, my manager is not going to ask me what I am doing. I'm not going to report to him telling that, this is what I have done today. This is what I'm planning to do tomorrow, which was very common in my previous roles, frankly. Like every morning, 9 a.m. stand-up, scrum, I'm going to talk about this is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm going to do today. This is where I am stuck. All of that is not there. So that's one thing that I love, like that you get to choose what you work at. In fact, we have a saying like, you need to be good at, like leaving the 95% of the things because there's so much to do that if you just focus 5%, you'll be able to create a big impact, right? And that's what, like now coming to AWS specifically, like I working in AWS for the last 3.5 years, almost close to 4 years now. In fact, I love the people with whom I work. You get to work with the best of the best when you're working here. Everyone here is about raising the bar and they support you so that you can raise the bar always.
I hope your leader is watching this because I can still hear the fire in you. The fire is definitely there. There's a lot of a moment.
But the leader knows about that.
I know.
The leaders already know about that.
That's why I talk about culture and diversity. When I say diversity, I don't mean, the skin color. I mean like diversity of the amount of problem that you have to solve. The vocabulary of diversity, I like an Amazon culture and outside of Amazon are not even on the same page. That's why I knew that when I left Amazon, I'm probably going to end up being my own boss because I knew right off the bat that I'm never going to be able to find the right culture for me. If you are somebody who are motivated by your brain cells being worked on with activity in different type of problem to solve, and once you're done solving that, you're somebody that's really uncomfortable sitting back or sitting still, that's the Amazon culture. Because let me tell you, there's not been a single day, single minute, single hour where I sat still there. So that is like the one culture that I love so much, because you could actually have fluid conversation with your boss and other leaders and they understand, they actually respect you. So for all of you, I know that all of you are prepping for your interview. You have to think about a time where you're having tough conversations and how you're able to influence, because dealing with ambiguity of different diversity background and your ability to influence, it's key. Even though the interview question is not how do you deal with ambiguity, you put 2 to 2 together. That's what they want to know.
On the point that you're talking about working, and having that pipeline of candidates to fill the roles. So it's about like what we have, like work hard, have fun, make history. Though it's hard work, but we do have fun while working, right? And that's how we make
a lot of fun. So there's like a pro and con. You work hard, you work really, really hard, but you want to take the opportunity or create opportunity if you want to do more. And no one's going to stop you in that environment. They want you to do more. The tech culture, there's a lot of non-tech folks or even data engineer, product manager, program manager. I get a lot of those messages wanting to transition into solution architect. So can you talk a little bit more about what differentiates Amazon tech culture from different employers? I know you work for a different employer as well. Is it completely different? What is the tech culture like there?
Things move at a very fast pace here. So you need to be on top of it. And Amazon is mainly, yes, we can call it as a more retail company, but it's mainly a tech company. If you look at all the technology that it has behind it. And guys, if you I've not heard of Werner Vogels, CTO of Amazon, please go ahead and follow him. You'll be able to understand why Amazon is a tech company, and kind of the innovations that Amazon does. So things move here at a very fast pace. So you need to keep up to that. And anyone who is trying to translate into a solutions architect role, solution architect role is not just about the technology. Yes, you need to understand the technology. You should be able to there's a problem, understand what technical solution can be provided for that problem. But solutions architect is also about the whole consulting. You need to have that communication. You need to be able to understand what the business problem is and see whether or not a specific solution is required or not. Sometimes you need to understand the pain points exactly to give them a technical solution, or probably it's not a technical solution at all. It might be a completely different thing. And to able to, instead of jumping into the solution, if you're able to understand the business problem and see how you can help them solve it, that's where the specialty of solutions architect comes into picture. When I get into a meeting with a customer or a partner, I never go with a solution in my mind. I go with a very open mind, thinking about, okay, let me just understand what the problem is and what issues are they facing. And once I understand, a lot of times as soon as I start speaking, probably because I would have heard about that similar thing with some other customer or some other partner in some other scenario, I might be having the solution in my mind, but I'm not going to speak it at the very first instance, because every customer is different, every business problem is different, and there has to be a custom solution, though similar but not exactly same. So you need to wait until to understand the entire landscape that they have, and then come up with a solution. Sometimes what happens, and this is something that we used to, before joining AWS, I might used to jump into solutions way too quickly, even before understanding the full landscape of problem. And that what happens is that then down the line you need to go back to the drawing board. So
I think we all do that. Yeah, we all do that before a hot second. I think it's not just AWS. I think in any employer, when you first start, your first 30 days as you're onboarding, although there's no really onboarding at Amazon, but you have to understand what the issues are and really listen before you dive deep. I'm the same way. I like to go deep and save the world, where I should just calm down, tone down, listen. My thought, probably someone has already done it. And that's another thing. When you think you're smart, you have a solution, someone else has already done it before you. And whomever your internal customer is in front of you are sick of you saying the same thing. Someone else has already done it. So I think it's good and bad for the level of bias for action. But I love your example of just pausing, diving deep to understand before jumping the gun. I have in a live chat that is called Think Big and Diving Deep, or Deep Dive. And I used to tell these folks that if your answer is solid and specific with a result on how you deliver them, you would be able to hit the leadership principle almost 100% of the time, because all of that is there. Prasad, I just mentioned one sentence that he said, that's already two of the LPs. But that's so smart though. I love early on when you mentioned that you have to look back of everything you've accomplished and align them to the LP, because all of them should have customer obsessions. All of them should have a result and everything that you've done on there. Excellent. So what is the worst interview experience that you have done? Be honest with me. What are your favorite?
Yeah. So it's quite, common patterns. Be authentic. It's very important in an interview. Do not try and shy away from failing your, sharing your failure stories. And this is something that we always say. Earn trust is one of the core leadership principles that we have. Now, in one specific interview, what was happening was, great personality, and the person had, really good experience. And interview started at a very high note. The resume was top notch, and it was a phone screen going on. And the first answer, awesome. In India, we have this cricket, always, fall out of the park. It was a sixer with the first, same with the second. It was such good. And I was like, finally, we will be able to fill our role, because, we have to interview so many candidates before we are able to find the right candidate. And I had that position open for almost a year, right? So I was finally thinking that, found a good candidate. But then when I started asking about, share when things did not went your way, or failure story, the person was like, in 20 years career, I never failed. And now that was a red flag for me. So that was something that, it did not earn trust. I tried to probe, to understand. Tell me about a scenario when you thought that you'll implement in a specific manner, but when you started implementing it, you hit some roadblocks because of probably the scope changed, the customer came up with new requirements or something else. But no, my planning was perfect. Things went. The more I started asking, probably I understood that the person started becoming defensive. And then that's why I understood, probably, no, not the Amazonian culture. And that's where the misfit happened. So yeah, Holly, you probably know this, probably, you have seen the scenarios before, where people are shying away from sharing.
That's number one answer. I make no mistakes. I'm perfect. Well, that is I'm perfect. But it's actually in the core leadership principle of it's actually there. They remove what is that one? Vocally self-critical. Why did they remove that LP? That's one of my favorite. That's self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
Yeah, they removed it.
It happened before I joined Amazon, but yeah, I heard about being vocally self-critical. And somehow the earned trust itself, I would say it is embodied in a way. It is vocally self-critical. If you are able to represent your true self, you would earn trust with anyone you are speaking with. So when someone says that I've never failed, it just generally means two things for me, frankly. First, either you are lying, or second, you have never stepped out of your comfort zone. You have always worked within your comfort zone so that you are able to achieve the outcomes. Once you start stepping out of your comfort zone, that's when you start hitting roadblocks and you try and solve bigger problems or the challenges that are beyond your control. That's what I would say. When you are interviewing, just do not think about the success stories. Also think about the failure stories and the learnings that you have had from those failure stories and how that has helped you to become better in your next job or your next project, right? So that's really important.
It's also a trust issue. If I'm the hiring manager, you've never made a mistake before. It makes me really nervous. It is. How am I supposed to coach you if you're coming to me that you're perfect? And how am I supposed to give you your performance review if I'm pretty sure you and I are not going to see eye to eye if I'm giving you a negative feedback? Negative feedback's not a good thing. I hate using the word negative. Area of improvement, right? Development. And you're not going to take it well, which means your peer's not going to take it well, which means how am I ever going to promote you? Because there's a level of expectation there. Beautiful, Prasad. I preach my 1-minute elevator pitch. I didn't copy from anything. Everything I say is very raw, by the way. I have no scream, no script, no teleprompter, which I have one I never use. I don't know why I would waste my money and do it. I don't prompt anything. I came up with the 1-minute answer. I'm not talking about the entire interview question. It's about 10 minutes, by the way. I'm talking about, look at what Prasad and I are doing. I asked him a question. He responded within a minute or less. I asked him another question. He responded a minute or less. That's what I'm talking about. Let me explain to you why. Because when I was a new kid walking into, I was in 3 different teams at Amazon, devices and consumer. I remember sitting in a room with Jeff Wilkie. If you don't know him, he is the right-hand person of Jeff BeSa and all of his direct. And deep down inside, my heart was pounding. I was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. It's my first time manager. And who are these people? I was nervous. So I have this half an hour presentation for them. I thought I was doing so good. I was so smart. I'm so proud of myself. It took me 3 weeks to put it together. And I was being shut down right off the bat that I wasted their time and tell me to come back when I have some raw data and all that. I ate some humble pie by Jeff Wilkie, by the way. I will never forget. I love the man. Hey, he gave it to me just like that. I love that. I appreciate that. So I asked for a week of time. I came back. It was all number, no words, no paper, nothing, because I asked them what they were looking for. And I gave myself 1 minute. I trimmed down from a 10-minute speech before them looking at my paper or 1-minute speech, just look at the data. That was it. And when they're done looking at the data, I got exactly what I want. Within the 5 minutes, they were reading the numbers. I asked for a lot of money to do international expansion. That is the most innovative thing I've done at Amazon. By the way, go check out right here. Go download that story if you're interested. True story, by the way. How do you feel about my 1-minute elevator pitch?
Before coming to your 1-minute elevator pitch, just also on your question, as an interviewers, we always want you to pass. So as Ollie said, look for that cues when interviewers are saying something, and that's your chance to pivot. But when you use that method, like Holly, this is what you will be able to understand whether or not the interviewer is, interested in your story. And based on the kind of questions the interviewer is asking, you'll be able to pivot it. You will not be having that option if you're going on a monologue. You will not, because the interviewer has no option than to either cut you in between or keep taking notes. Think about how precisely and concisely you are able to answer that, but be super informative. Do not leave the details out. Leave few things so that you can give them an opportunity to go dive deep into it and peel that onions, have that confidence that you are able to dive deep. But yeah, be as precise, as concise as you can while telling the entire story in the star format.
I always tell people to put their top 3 story. Always go for number 1. Obviously, if you're interviewing with a hiring manager or level 7 or a bar raiser, you want your best answer. And then you save all the other ones later on. And don't overshare. So what is the best preparation that you could give somebody? And why would someone want to work at Amazon now? I know the answer, but I think a lot of the folks think I'm so biased. They seriously think that you guys are sponsoring me or paying me to do this. You're not. I'm just very passionate of the process at Amazon. So what is the best takeaway tip that you like to add?
Yeah, so for the preparation, right? Couple of things. First, focus on I instead of we. Obviously you'll take time for preparation, and during that preparation time, do structure your answers in star format and focus on what you as an individual was able to contribute to whatever scenario you're talking about, and not about the team. I know it is very difficult. It's not easy to focus on. I was in a similar situation because, like in previous companies, we talk about what we as a team did, and we used to feel proud that, my team was able to achieve this. That's great. But tell about your role specifically. What was your specific role in your team? How, you as an individual were able to contribute, and that will be really important. So this is something that I see a lot of people are missing. They do have a great stats to share, but they forget about what they as an individual contribution was. The other thing I would say, Christian tip, what was the impact? I got promoted. That's a byproduct. That's not an impact that you made out of it. You did a great job, good. And because of it, what happened? How did the client benefit? How did the, overall, end users benefit? What was the, a big level business problem that was solved, and how that has changed a specific thing? You getting promoted, you getting salary hike, that's a byproduct. It's going to happen anyways, with the good work that you are doing. I remember another interview when I asked the person, okay, what was your specific contribution? What was your, I was trying to understand, what the specific person contribution was. And Holly, again, true, the answer was, I stayed whole night to complete the task. And I am like, okay, that's again your job. It's not a contribution.
Yes.
Probably the entire team had to stay whole night to finish that particular task and help that move
That
forward.
is so common, Prasad. Everyone says that. Very, very common. I work on the weekend. I work so many hours. No one wants to hear it. It's not that they don't care. We're all doing it. I don't want you to think that, we're saying this because it's like the culture at AWS. This is all the companies. Even companies that have work-life balance, they don't want to hear you say that. It doesn't help them to make a higher decision, because if you're a great communicator, if you have the work ethic, they can hear it from your answer. So there's no need to waste time and content to share that part. Excellent. So let's do some quick Q&A. Looking for tips to transition from a software developer to AWS Solution Architect. I have 15 years of experience as a SWE. I've completed cloud computing courses. That's awesome that you're taking the initiative to do that already. Are there any tips that you could provide for our friend here to prep him?
The major difference here would be, as a developer, we tend to focus more on the specific code or the technical solution. As a solutions architect, along with that, we start focusing on the business problems and finding the right kind of solutions, knowing all the options and having that pros and cons, and able to do, which solution best fit this particular problem. See how you can get into situations or where you are able to get that direct interaction with the customer to understand the customer problem. Be in the forefront. Try and see if you can accompany your business developer to the customer and be that in room to understand what the business problem is. Believe me, things get lost in that translation, and you would be having your career growth a lot faster if you're able to do this earlier in your career. Having that customer interactions directly from the very beginning. Even if you are from a QA background or a software development background or any background, ensure that you have that customer instruction very start. And that has really helped me, actually. If you have been participating in BeSa, Become a Solutions Architect program that we have, like I, along with few other Amazonians, we do run that as a free program. We have run 3 batches. The whole purpose of that program is to help you transition, become a solutions architect. It goes in the name itself.
Now, what made you guys create the program? I thought that's really cool. That's like, I called it like 20% of your time, even though it's way more than 20% of the time. I know you were up until, I remember the time I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning or 3. I know that your collaboration partners are in India as well for the time zone. So what made you, the group, come together and put this together for folks?
Interesting. When I joined AWS, right? A lot of my colleagues from the previous companies reached out to me that, Prasad, how can we get started on cloud? And that's why I started mentoring those folks. And then I thought, a lot of people are struggling in getting started with cloud, and it's not that difficult. It's really easy. So when I say I prepared for 3 months to join AWS, it took me 3 months to transition to cloud. Flat, just 3 months to transition to cloud, right? So I started helping this, on LinkedIn, and then I started mentoring on my own. I used to run this, cohort of just 20 people because I was not able to scale alone myself. But then few other Amazonians, they were also doing that individually. And they reached out to me that, Prasad, can, should we join forces? And that's how it happened. And that's how few of us got together. And then we thought about, okay, let's create a more scalable. And then we started live streaming on Twitch, and we have that YouTube channel where we upload. That's the scaling mechanism.
That's awesome. That's amazing. I mean, those are the type of stuff that motivates me as well, just to do things like that.
I love what you do for the community, Holly. Seriously, I know how many people who reach out to me, they say that, obviously I do not do it at the scale that you do. You do it at a much larger scale, which is great. Yep. And, they reach out to me. I say that, Prasad, I have been listening to Holly. And almost every one of them, like, they have been anyways listening to you. So I said that if you're listening to Holly, then all you need to do is to apply it. You don't need to come to me for any additional tips. You already have all those tips. Just ensure that you're able to apply it, because she knows in and out what, as a like interviewers, AWS interviews expectations are, and she has broken it down in her videos. So if you already spent that time, now spend time in applying those.
Is AWS hiring for solution architect, big data, and analytics role? Because not all solution architect role has big data and analytics. So depending on what you're doing with the infrastructure, right? I know I'm non-tech, but I kind of still know what I'm talking about by hanging out with tech people for 26 years. Is that accurate?
Oh, yes. And you're right. Okay, from a solutions architect perspective, there are two kinds of role. Either it's a generalist, specialist. And when we talk about generalist, they would be knowing about a lot of things, but they might not be going deep into each and every part of it. As a specialist solution architects, we will be knowing at a very high level about few things, but we will go deep into it one specific. So one such specialty would be a big data analytics solutions architect. I'm not sure if we currently have a role opening for this. I know we might be having. Check at amazon.com/jobs. It might be in some specific, geographies, there will be role. But yes, there is a role specific, and I'm sure when the industry would bounce back, we would be having a lot more roles open in each of these specialist area.
So let's wrap this up. Please give him a virtual clap and thank him for his time here. My goal is once a month. If you guys are new to my channel, I do have special guests. But the second channel is coming up, focusing on diversity of all things diversity. I am your virtual career coach. Peace out, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.